Welcome to Solo Travel Adventures, my sisters. Don't let fear hold you back from traveling alone. I want you to gather your courage, listen to inspiring stories, and learn how to travel solo while safely navigating new places from this show. I'm Cheryl Esch, solo travel advocate and travel coach, and I want you to have a transformative experience when you travel solo. So pack your bags, book your flight, and check one more time for that passport. It's time to explore the world. Hello, sister travelers. Welcome back. Well, there's a lot going on in the world right now that may not make travel very advisable at the moment. And that all really depends on where you're planning to go. Now, there's a lot of turmoil going on, and we are always going to have wars, unfortunately, in this world. But right now, there's a lot happening that I would not advise doing travel in these areas. And not to get political, but I'm just coming to you for safety reasons. I want to just talk to you about places you can go to check on the safety of a country, and also what you can do instead. So say, for example, you do need to cancel your plans, or whether you should or not, or what you could do if you really have the travel bug, and things that you can do and still maintain the safety factor. So as we know, there's a lot going on in many countries right now. And I'm not one to, shy away from things like that. However, when the world is shown and it's kind of really red in some areas, where it's, red alerts not to travel in these areas because of the war going on, then you may want to change your plans, especially if you're traveling actually to those countries, or even around those countries that maybe border or are near that vicinity. And ways to check on that is, there's a couple ways depending on, what country you are coming from, of course. The U.S. has a travel advisory section on a website. It is travel.state.gov, and it's the U.S. Department of State that will give you travel advisories on every country out there. And so you can look at, they have, of course, don't advise, which would be red, and they have yellow advisories, which are caution, meaning you can go there, just you would proceed with caution for whatever reason. And Australia also has a Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and it's called smarttraveler.gov.au. You can go there, and they have something very similar, checking on, just what's happening around the world and what advice they're giving as far as travel. And Canada also has one. It's called travel.gc.ca, if you want to go there and see. Many of them you could actually specifically search for. Maybe you have a trip to a certain country and you want to see what the advisory is on that country. I also like to go to Safe Expat. I follow them on Instagram. They actually will advise you on maybe things that wouldn't necessarily come up as hot topics, maybe, and maybe not even listed in any of these travel government websites. And what they do, for example, the one that they just posted recently was they were advising a caution in traveling to Madagascar. Now you probably ask why. Well, they give an explanation as to why they're advising to not go. And if they change their advisory, they will go on their Instagram page and they will let you know why they've changed it. But Madagascar is actually having some elections coming up in November, presidential elections. So they say there's potential for, riots or protests or things like that might go on. So that's why they have a cautionary advisory for that country. And that might not be something that is on the big websites that I just mentioned, radar, those kind of little things. So I like them because they tell you why and they tell you what's happening, even in the smaller countries. So ladies, I want you just to be safe. All right. And I know it might be devastating that maybe you had a trip planned to that area and maybe you made the decision to cancel. Just know that your life is more valuable than going on a trip. Okay. As much as I love travel, and I just recall, as we all have been there, when the pandemic hit and everybody was grounded and no travel was happening, no air travel. Basically, no one was allowed to leave their country. There were even certain states here in the U.S. that you weren't allowed to leave that state or even maybe your city. All right. So it's, we had lockdowns all over the world. And when that happened, I was actually, once it hit the U.S. and everything shut down here, I was scheduled to go to Ireland a few weeks later. Of course, that got canceled. But I was fine with that. But as the pandemic kept going, right, and we still weren't able to travel, I got a little depressed personally because, I love travel so much, and it's really, it lights me up. It, gives me energy. I thrive. It's almost like depriving me of chocolate if I get deprived of travel. I know it's just pitiful, but I got so, upset that I had to think of other ways to, okay, how can I fulfill this need to travel without flying anywhere, without going anywhere? And here are two things that you can do. Is one of them, my guest last week mentioned, is what she did during the pandemic as a New Yorker. She explored her own city. And you can certainly do that. And I live in a big city as well. And so there is so much to see and do here as well that I'm still discovering, right? But during the pandemic, for me, I kind of widened my scope a little bit. And my guest last week also mentioned maybe do a 50-mile radius around where you live and explore outside that area. And I actually did that. I tried to go around to different small towns in Texas during the pandemic, take pictures, just explore the tiny towns and things along the way. And, that was fulfilling to me. And it was interesting because this would be something I would not have done if, we hadn't been sort of locked down and not allowed to go international anywhere, and even, trying to stay, within your own community. So one, look in your own city, where you live, maybe your town, explore it as though you were a tourist. So that would be one way, to look at it with different eyes. Second way is to explore beyond your city, maybe going a little further out, something within driving distance, of course, to explore areas again that you wouldn't necessarily go and see. Obviously, maybe an area that doesn't have an airport that you just want to drive to. There's plenty to see. I don't care where you live. Even if, you feel like you're out in the boondocks, you can drive somewhere or even just explore some areas of nature, possibly, if you are surrounded by that. But I want you sisters to remain safe during this time that we're going through right now in this world. So if you have travel planned in some of those areas that they are advising not to go right now, reconsider, whether it's rebooking, doing something else, take the credits. Trust me, your life is more important. And there are other ways to fulfill this idea, this exploratory curiosity of travel in your hometown or locally just outside of where you live. Please check out those websites if you do plan to travel. Follow Safe Expat for updates on some smaller countries and little known things that are happening in the world for updates for your travel needs. Hey, sister travelers, did this podcast inspire and encourage you or move you to get out there and travel? Wonderful. There are 3 ways you can thank me. First one is leave a written review for the show on Apple Podcast. 2, share the show with your sister travelers, your friends, your family. And 3, subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And thank you again for listening to the show. Sisters, be fearless, take the leap, and get out there and have an adventure.